And we'll get started. I am Corey Cantrell, and I am a member of the League of Women Voters of Sioux City, and I will be serving as the moderator for this evening's Sioux City Council Candidates Primary Election Forum. That's a mouthful. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization whose membership is open to all citizens over the age of 16, male or female. We do not endorse candidates or political parties. We do, however, work to educate ourselves and the public on issues affecting our citizens and government. This is why we are committed to hosting candidates forum like this one. In addition to the League of Women Voters, this forum is being hosted by the Greater Sioux City Press Club and Siouxland Public Media, KWIT radio station for those of us who are old. We would like to thank the mayor, the city manager, city support staff, especially city clerk Lisa McArdle for their assistance in making the excellent arrangements for tonight's forum. Cable One is televising this event with the help of the city staff and intern Connor Foster. Thank you, Connor. I would like to also thank the League of Women Voters Board for their assistance in coordinating tonight's forum. We appreciate having members of the Mayor's Youth Commission Legislative Committee volunteering their time as timers this evening. Their names are Kyra Hess and Alexis Hunley. Serving as our panelists tonight are Cindy O'Kane, who is the co-president of the League of Women Voters, Woody Gutberg, president of the Greater Sioux City Press Club, and Mary Hartnett from Siouxland Public Media. We appreciate you giving your time to be here with us tonight. Yeah. On behalf of the citizens of Sioux City, I want to thank our candidates for their willingness to run for public office. There are 9 candidates in this primary election. 6 of them will advance to the general election. At this time, I'd like to introduce our candidates, starting on my far right, Mr. Nick Davidson, Pete Gretkin, Jake Jungers, Dan Moore, Alex Waters, John Olson, for your willingness to serve. For our forum tonight, the format will be, I will pose an initial question to the candidates relative to their qualification and will allow them a 60-second response time. The panelists will then call upon the next panelist to pose a question to the next candidate. The candidates will have 60-second maximum response time allotted. The timers will show a sign to the candidates when 30 seconds remain. Would you hold that up so they can see what it looks like? There you go. And when their time is expired, I will then announce that the 60 seconds are up and proceed to the next candidate. We will start each round with a different candidate so that we can have panelists ask different questions to different people. During the final 10 minutes of this portion, we will give you each a chance to answer a question that was not asked to you, but asked to someone else that you might want to respond to. So feel free to take notes during the evening. After approximately 45 minutes, we'll take a short break and collect questions from the audience. The audience members, you are encouraged to write questions on the note cards provided, and then during the break, the League of Women Voters members will collect the note cards. After I reconvene our forum, I will pose as many of those questions as we have time for. I will ask one question to each candidate and then move on to the next candidate until we have used all the time allotted for that segment. During the last 15 minutes of that segment, you will again be given an opportunity to give a maximum 60-second summation of your qualifications for the job and your reasons for running. I would like to remind the audience, candidates, and panelists to turn off your cell phones and pagers. Thank you very much. Okay, everybody ready? Great. So for our first question, I will ask you each to respond in 60 seconds. Please state your reasons for running for a seat on the Sioux City Council. Mr. Davidson, would you please answer first?
I want to run because it feels like sometimes the council doesn't listen to the people, and I want to be the person that would listen to the people and hear what they have to say and try to fix the issues that they have.
Thank you. I would remind all of you to please lean forward so that we can hear you, pick you up on the mics. I know that people in the room may be able to hear you, but we want to make sure we get it recorded for television. Okay, so go ahead.
Hi, my name's Pete Gretkin, and the reason that I am running again for city council is because I have a great passion for the city. I was employed by the city for nearly 38 years as a police officer, and then decided to run for city council, and lo and behold, was elected, and the 4 years has gone by very quickly. I have always had this philosophy that if I'm going to do something, I want to be surrounded by good people. And in my opinion, the city of Sioux City is a great organization. There are a lot of good people, and I knew it would be something that would fulfill me and give me the opportunity to continue public service and work with a lot of good people. And that's really why I'm doing it, because I think the city is a really good organization. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Jake Youngers. I am running because I believe that we need representation from a youthful perspective. At the same time, we need to have new ideas. I believe the current city council can do a better job of listening to the people, just like Mr. Davidson says. I would say there's ideas that we propose and people react, but at the same time, we don't educate them. And I think if we took the time to educate people, there wouldn't be as much of a reaction on everything like that. So I'm here to share my voice and be the voice of people that don't have representation.
I'm Dan Moore. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for holding this important forum so that you can all get to know us. I want to thank the citizens that have shown up tonight and that will be listening over the airwaves to this forum. I think it's extremely important to the growth of our city. I'm running for re-election because City Hall, I find solutions to problems, and I am a good listener. And I'm also a team player, and I think I've represented Sioux City for these past 4 years to the best of my ability, because anything I do, everything I do, I'm representing all of you at one time or another. Thank you.
My name is Zach for a couple of reasons, and I think first and foremost is I believe in this community. I really do. I didn't grow up here. I came to college at Morningside College, and then following that, attended Creighton University, where I received my master's, bounced around a little bit, and came back. And I came back and decided to really start my life here because I believe in where we are going and what we're doing. Since serving on city council, I've become more dedicated to this community. Before even serving, I served on multiple boards and organizations, really integrated myself in this community because I think that's important to not just talk about these ideas, but take action, be a part of the community and try to make that difference. And I see that my serving on city council that's what I've tried to do, is take these ideas, listen to constituents, and like Dan was saying, really work together to make a difference and be the change that we wish to see in our community. That's what I want to continue being a part of, is being a part of that in the long term. Thank you.
My name is John Olson, and I'm the loudest one here, apparently. My name is John Olson. I'm 39 years old. I am from Sioux City. Obviously, I live in Morningside. I got a wife and 3 kids. The fact that we don't really have a whole lot of family things to do in this town bothers me, and it bothers my children. We have parks, yeah, but there's only so many you can go to and so many times. So basically, I'm here because I want change, just like everyone else. And yeah, I think that's
My name is Dennis Quinn. I want to run for council because I raised 3 kids in this town. I have 3 grandkids growing up here, and I think Sioux City is moving forward, and I want to be a part of that. I retired 3 years ago from the school district. I enjoy working with the public, and I think I have some positive attitudes to bring to the council and help it move forward, the city.
Okay. Mr. Waples?
My name's Doug Waples. I've lived in Sioux City 45 years. I've lived in the same house in the same neighborhood for over 42 years. I'm running for city council for a couple, 3 reasons. I think we're behind on on our streets, our water and sewer lines. I think we spend too much money on outside consultants and then don't follow through maybe with the report that we spent the money on. And then the other thing is, the main thing is city projects. I think a lot of them don't get done on time, and it negatively affects people's business and their lives. And that's pretty much it. Thank you.
I'm Brett Watchorn. I've lived in this community for 30 years now, I guess. My whole life, basically. I am running for council because, from what I've seen recently, I believe I can offer a different perspective than those who currently sit on the council. I want to be a voice for the people who, unfortunately, don't attend these meetings because either they don't have time or they just can't, or they don't feel their voice is heard. I want to be a voice for them. That's really why I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now start with our panelist questions, and we'll begin with Mrs. O'Kane, followed by Mr. Gottberg, and then Mrs. Hartnett. Mrs. O'Kane, if you would please direct your question to Mr. Gretkin, and we'll proceed in order.
Okay. Is there any one particular issue in city government that you're concerned about or passionate about that you'd want to change or improve?
That I would like to change
Or improve.
Or improve?
or
Any-
approve. Well, there are a number of issues that that are really important to me. First and foremost is to continue with economic development in the downtown area. I think that's really important in an effort to continue to boost the economy that I think the past council has really done a good job of. I'm also concerned about parks and recreation activities. I personally believe one of the better decisions council has made in the 4 years was to reinstate Parks and Recreation Department at a department head level. It had been removed from that status and put into Public Works, and Parks and Recreation are really important, and they're important to me because they lend themselves quite nicely to quality of life. And that's a minute already?
Thank you.
Thank you, Alexis. Mr. Gottberg, if you would direct your question to Mr. Jungers.
All right. First off, thanks to all of you for taking part in this. I've done many of these forums, and this is the first time I think I've had 9 candidates on a panel. So for people that say citizens don't want to participate in government, I think you're all definitely the exception to the rule. So thanks to all of you for running for a seat on the council. One of the first things that a new council will deal with is always the budget. So it'll be in the hundreds of millions of dollars. What kind of budget and financial experience do you have that would qualify you to deal with a budget in the hundreds of millions of dollars?
Mr. Jungers.
For a budget in the hundreds of millions of dollars, besides personal finances and investing, I would say take a look at what people want. I would say that's mainly what I do. Obviously, I'm not a millionaire, so new numbers are going to be out there. But I would say we need to be fiscally responsible on everything that we do, and we need to have balanced budgets coming from City Hall. And if we don't do that, we won't be able to achieve what we want to.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hartnett, if you would direct your question to Mr. Moore.
Okay, I wanted to ask, in line with the people who came out today to give their opinions on the comprehensive study that the city is proposing, what do you think is the most important part of that, or maybe a couple of the important areas of that comprehensive study that the city should focus on?
On the comprehensive plan?
Yes.
I think the important areas, first of all, is that we collectively pull our ideas together to grow the city and to grow it in a very deliberate manner. It's important to have a comprehensive plan. I've always believed in the comprehensive plan. I was on plan and zoning for over 20 years, and it's important to the community that we have that. I think that the growth of Sioux City, the residential growth combined with the industrial and commercial, has to be done in an orderly fashion so that we can all coexist. I think that's extremely important. Thank you.
And Ms. O'Kane, if you would direct your question to Mr. Waters.
Okay, South Sioux City recently is a yet-to-be-named solar park, but it's going to produce 2.3 megawatts of capacity, which means that will meet 5% of South Sioux City's total electric needs. Do you think that Sioux City should move toward making the city more energy efficient by using renewable energy sources such as wind or solar? And do you have any suggestions on how to make that happen?
Yeah, to myself, this is actually something that I'm really passionate about. That I've talked about a lot, and I'm excited to see area communities taking that step as well. It's something that I've been working with city staff, talking, right now we have plans as far as biofuels, working down at a wastewater treatment plant, looking into the collection of gas and being able to pump that back into a pipeline and make a profit off of that. I think that's something that we can do to be more energy efficient. I also had a meeting with representatives from Mid-American Energy, talking about what ideas they would have as far as wind energy or solar. I understand that in a city population, wind energy is not as effective. And so looking at solar panels on top of city buildings or other ways to collect that energy, I think is something that we should continue to look into to offset that cost and really take care of our environment. So that's something I would definitely look forward to improving upon.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Mr. Gottberg, if you will direct your question to Mr. Olson.
Thanks. The current council in a couple of weeks is going to have to make a decision as far as the management of the city events facilities, either going private or remaining public as it currently is. One of the things you mentioned in your opening statement was that we needed more family things that would go into those event facilities. So to do that, would you support privatizing the city's event facilities, or would you like to see the city still manage them?
That's kind of a catch-22 right there. I believe that the city should get out of the entertainment business. It should. But then on the other hand, you have all those city employees that work there. What are you going to do with them? I think we need to worry about our citizens and their wages before anything else. So those employees are able to keep their jobs and be able to keep, be here and have a sustainable, income.
Right, thanks.
And Ms. Hartnett, if you'll direct your question to Mr. Quinn.
It looks like we're finally going to wrap up work at some point on that sinkhole on Pierce Street. There are a lot of other issues, infrastructure issues, streets with a lot of problems and potholes. How do you think the city can better deal with these infrastructure issues that seem to be ongoing?
I think you're always going to have that problem because as everything ages, it's going to have to be replaced. The sinkholes. I don't know about that one up there on 30. You're talking about the one on 32nd Street, I believe. I think that was like the second time that happened up in that area. So obviously, it wasn't handled right the first time. But it's going to be an ongoing problem in town. I think it's something that we're just going to have to deal with.
And Ms. O'Kane, if you would direct your question then to Mr. Waples.
What's your opinion of the decision to build a hotel and parking ramp next to the convention center?
I would vote no on that with the configuration of where they're setting the hotel at this time. I think it's going to make a lot of the convention center for a lot of the vendors useless with big trucks and whatever trying to back in the back of that. I mean, I think there's plenty of places to put it. I'm not against a hotel downtown. I just don't think the parking lot of the convention center is the correct place.
Thank you.
And Mr. Gottberg, if you would direct your question to Mr. Watchorn.
The city does have regulations in place regarding the number of pets you own, and also regulations specific to particular breeds of dogs like pit bulls. Any thoughts on, if you're elected, would you want to change that as far as the number of pets a person could own? Are the dog breed regulations too strict, or are you happy with how they are?
That's actually the perfect question for me, because I disagree with any of the regulations on any pet breed. It's not the pet that causes the problem, it's the owner. It always will be. When it comes to the number of pets, we live in a city. There has to be a reasonable medium, but we are also a rural community, so I don't believe that if someone wants to have a chicken coop in their backyard, they should be able to, honestly. But yeah, that's the kind of change I would look for. There are some restrictions currently, I believe, on just what kinds of pets you can have, and that in this rural community, that bothers me. But yeah, I would definitely change the pet breed. I would at least bring it up because that's ridiculous. You can't blame a dog for what an owner teaches it, no matter the breed. That's all.
All right, thanks.
And Ms. Hartnett, if you would direct your question to Mr. Davidson.
What would you do about the fireworks ordinance? There's so much concern, a lot of people upset with the length of time that people could set off fireworks. How would you change it, or would you change it from the way it is now?
I think that I would look at shortening the amount of days. I think 10 was a lot. We don't need to have, 4th of July for 10 days. I think 3 or 4 days is perfect. The hours for it, I don't know if we need to set fireworks off at 10 a.m., but then again, little kids like to go out and play with fireworks too, so I'd say probably make it noon at least, because there are people in this community that work all 3 shifts, and we gotta try to find a way to be respectful to them also. It's just, one of those things you gotta find a compromise on, because some people want it, some people don't. But I think shortening it down to 3 or 4 days is probably the best bet on that.
And Ms. O'Kane, if you would now direct your question to Mr. Jungers.
Mr. Jungers, the state eliminated some of the collective bargaining rights of public employees. Do you believe the city should restrict its bargaining with the unions to only wages, or continue to bargain with all the other traditional items that they are used to bargaining for?
I don't think the city should limit what they can bargain with. I think they should leave everything on the table as is.
Thank you.
Mr. Gottberg, if you would direct your question to Mr. Moore.
All right. Have you tried the reverse angle parking behind the Promenade Center?
That's really a good question. Thanks for asking.
You're welcome, Dan.
As I drove by it today, as a matter of fact, I was thinking, I think I'm going to try it because there's not a whole lot of traffic, and I didn't. Reverse angle parking is good for some people. But it's a big change for me, and so I haven't tried it. I'm not sure it's going to work. I know the concept is so you can back in and then you can pull out and you'll see traffic better. But it's a backing in part that I'm concerned about. Not everybody has a backup camera that they can see if they're going to hit anything or how close they are to the curb. So I think it's parking in general needs to be studied, and I would advocate for a lot more discussion from the public on our parking situation.
Okay, thanks.
Ms. Hartnett, if you would direct your question to Mr. Waters.
This is also about parking. It seems like the ramps are often half full. Now we have the different kind of city parking, a free hour in the ramp. What do you think we can do to use these ramps in a better way, maybe try and get people to go in them more?
Yeah. No, I think it's a good question, and I think it's something that what the current council has been looking at and really relying on our different commissions as well. You know what I mean? With downtown partners and as far as the parking committees, I think that we need to continue to have public input. I think that's important, and we have those committees for a reason. But as far as I'm concerned, one thing that we need to do is a little more uniformity to be able to understand when it's free and when and how much it costs or where they are. But the other thing is marketing of that. You know what I mean? Allowing people that not only live here know when they're free and when they can park there, or now there's the 1 hour free, what that impacts. I also think that people coming into town need to know, and I know that we're working on that right now. We're doing a lot better with advertising, using the Blue P logo and directing people. But I think that as long as we continue those efforts, people will understand them a little more, and people coming into town will understand where they need to go. I think ultimately that will drive a lot more use of those ramps, which are expensive things that we have in our city, but I think we need to make sure we continue to use them and market those as such.
And Ms. O'Kane, if you would direct your question to Mr. Olson.
Mr. Olson, the city of Sioux City is becoming increasingly diverse. Our population is not only, numbers are growing, but the types of ethnic and racial groups are growing. In what ways can the city attract, advertise, or reach qualified minority employees?
Put it out there more, I guess, like, I don't see anything out now that, shows to bring them here or to apply or anything else, right, as of right now. So I think the best thing to do would be to put it out there and get the applicants that you want. That would be my answer, I guess. Yeah.
Thank you.
And Mr. Gottberg, if you would direct your question to Mr. Quinn.
Traffic cameras, would you like to see them go away? Would you like to see their use expanded? I know part of this is predicated on what the state may eventually decide, but how do you weigh in on traffic cameras and intersections in the city?
I'm not a fan of traffic cameras at all. So I would like to see them all go.
Right, fair enough.
Short and sweet.
And Ms. Hartnett, if you would direct your question to Mr. Waples.
What would you like to see changed in how people are able to approach the council to air, their concerns? They also, I know at the end of the council meeting, they always have people able to come up and talk about their citizen concerns. But what other ways do you think communication might be improved?
I mean, I guess I think it's pretty good right now. I've attended a lot of council meetings and spoke numerous times in the last year and a half, and a couple of times I've been here and I was the only citizen here, and usually the only one that stayed till the end. So I mean, I think they're all very approachable. All you've got to do is you call City Hall and you leave a number, and sometimes you get a response back in an hour or less. I don't see a problem with the system they have.
Next question will be to Mr. Watchorn. Do you think there are areas of city services or staffing that should be reduced or increased? And please explain.
Oh, reduced, absolutely. The amount of, I read an article earlier this year pertaining to how much we pay some of the higher echelons of the offices here in City Hall, and I was disgusted. It makes me sick that we're wasting that much money on positions that are redundant. And the one I have in mind, I need to do more research on before I can truly speak of it. But I believe there's a great need for reduction, in fact, in many city positions, mostly here in the higher level rather than on the streets.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Gottberg, if you will direct your question to Mr. Davidson.
Thanks. The city fire rescue is soon going to be taking over emergency 911 service at the end of the year. Some are fearful about the cost for this kind of being thrust suddenly upon this city to take over these duties. What are your thoughts on that? Are you in favor of that, or would you like to see some other plan devised?
I am in favor, but I'm not. Also, I thought that SPI did a fabulous job. It's sad to see them go, but also in the same aspect, I do think that taking it under as a city organization, along with like the fire and rescue, would be a wonderful thing. Because why not combine them both? Because the firefighters are their first responders anyhow, and if the paramedics are right with them, it allows it for a better, faster response time, I believe, for our citizens.
Okay.
And the next question to Mr. Gretkin.
You've talked a little bit about your goals for the council. You said one of your main goals is to help improve quality of life in the city. What have you done, do you think, in the last 4 years to attain that, and what would you still like to do?
You're absolutely right. Quality of life is very important to me. And I believe maybe the best thing that I've seen happen in my time on the council was, again, the upgrade of the Parks and Recreation Department to a department level. If you look at some of the features that they have worked on and have accomplished, the new Parks and Recreation Director in a little over 2 years, Cone Park, Green Space, Pearl Street Park, they have the improvement, the council approved just yesterday, the monarch habitat at the new Prairie Park, riverfront development, trails. Trails are huge to the community. And I think there are even many more that I would like to see. I think it's as simple as ask yourself a simple question: what do you want your community to be like? And once we figure that out, I think that's what we work towards. That's the quality of life that really interests me.
All right, so now for this next round, we will be starting with Mr. Moore.
Okay.
It's okay?
She looked at me, so I looked at her. I guess, in your opinion, what do you think is the most important issue facing the city at this time?
I think the most important issue facing the city right now would be safety of our citizens, that we continue, that we stay vigilant about police and fire protection. There are equally other important issues facing the city as well. We have a real challenge with the shortage of labor, of workers, and we need to work hard on that because that impacts economic development directly, and it's something that we just need to just really work hard at. Another thing we really need to just keep doing as best we can is to call on our small businesses. You know, it's great that Seaboard Triumph is coming to town, that they've opened. That's really good for this community overall, but we also have many, many businesses that we have to reach out, help them in any way possible, and then advertise that Sioux City is open for business. And City Hall has to have that attitude, that culture that we're open for business.
What's your question to Mr. Waters?
Well, I know you're involved with Sioux City Go, and a lot of people say we have to do things to keep our young people here. We have to find ways to keep our young people employed. With your spot on Sioux City Go, and also as a councilman, any new ideas if you get elected to a full term that you'd like to see implemented to make this a better place for younger people?
Yeah, it is something that I'm very passionate about, Woody, as you know. I really, that's a perfect example where I don't just talk about it, I really try to actively look for solutions. And so I've worked and served with the Sioux City Growth Organization. I serve on the Young Professionals of Iowa board, all of these things to try to come up with solutions. So I try to not only connect the young professionals that are here to make sure we're retaining, but actively recruiting as well. One of the new things that I've been working on, I actually worked with our human resources department to expand our internship opportunities. I wanted to look not only what we can do at the city level, but also talking with economic development and saying, what are new developers coming here saying that they want, what type of jobs? And then using my position at Morningside College, working with young professionals and students every day to say, what different educational opportunities or degrees do you need to be able to stay right here in Sioux City? What are the industries and the roles that you can fill that would keep you here in our community? In addition to quality of life, we have to make sure the jobs are here. I want to make sure that our young professionals are enjoying living here and have the jobs that will keep them here.
Thank you. Thanks. And then Ms. Hartnett to Mr. Olson.
A lot of people have talked about the lack of housing, especially affordable housing in Sioux City. What do you think the city can do to kind of help provide more affordable housing, maybe to lower and lower middle income workers? We have a lot of those workers coming to town.
I think there's a lot of places around town, especially in the downtown area, that can be used as apartments, even lower rent apartments. And one of them is, it just happens to be up for sale again. That's the that's the Howard Johnson Hotel. You know, I mean, there's a possibility for 100 apartments there essentially, and different things. If we're not going to use it as a hotel, because let's face it, when the Marriott comes here, we're not. It's not going to happen. So we might as well figure out a useful way to use it, and I think that would be it, man. Just turn it into low-income housing or moderate-income housing and open it up.
Thank you. And Ms. O'Kane, over to Mr. Quinn.
To follow up on that, there is a shortage of housing and affordable housing. Do you support the city getting more involved in providing subsidized housing?
I saw something in the, today, I can't remember where I saw it, but it said if you had these empty school buildings around town, what would you do with them? And, I got thinking about that, and I think that would be a place to start with buildings like that and to put that in there. And I think it would be good for the people, because we got these people that are going to be coming in for the new plan out there, and where are they going to be living? And the housing right now is pretty overpriced in Sioux City, because it's, when CF moved out, when they were here, they left, those prices were inflated, and they're still pretty inflated. So yes, I would be in favor of something like that.
Okay, thank you.
That's the first time she held up a sign for me too.
And Mr. Gottberg to Mr. Waples, please.
If elected to the council, what's the one thing you'd want to change from day one in city government if you got on there? What's the one thing you would look to change?
I guess something very important to me is to make sure projects are done on time. Whether it's a project close to a citizen's residence, or like the West 7th project. I think it needs to be watched very closely. It's impacting a lot of businesses down there, and it needs to be done on time. When the weather's nice, people need to be there working.
All right.
And Ms. Hartnett to Mr. Washburn.
A lot of people got to know you after the use of fireworks this summer, and you were one of few that were sort of standing up and saying, we have the right to do this. What did you learn from that experience? It seems like you got to know a lot of people. You learned a lot about how the city government works, right?
Yes, and I was already fairly familiar with some of it, just from the outside perspective. That it was nice to actually get my opinion voiced. For once, I felt like I had not done that before, and honestly, I had not. The issue, I was hot on that. I was very, very for non-regulation in general, but I softened my position to try and fit with the government mentality of it, to soften my position to the point of, I want to hear what everybody wants to think. I don't want to hear what the 4 people up here want to think. I want to hear what the people want to think. I proposed a vote, and I still think that is the best option, and I don't understand exactly. I haven't done enough research to see why exactly that couldn't be done. But I believe there should be more community involvement in these decisions. The more public vote we can have, the better, in my opinion. Thank you.
And back to Mr. Davidson, Mrs. O'Kane.
Mr. Davidson. Okay. There are, this is kind of a nostalgic question. When I was growing up, downtown was a very fun place to shop. Now more and more people are shopping online, stores are closing, the mall isn't quite what it used to be. What are some ideas that you have for revitalizing downtown?
I would love to see us try to bring in more businesses, retail, anything downtown. I want to see our downtown thrive and grow. I think that getting the businesses down there, we need to look at, what the taxes are on these buildings, because it seems like you see a shop go up and then within a month it's gone. The parking situation also is another issue on why people don't come downtown. I think, with the offering the first hour free in the parking ramps is something that is a good idea to help try to bring businesses in, because then people will be able to park and not have to worry about being charged, for that first hour. And if they go over an hour, it's not that expensive to be in there for a couple hours and walk downtown and shop.
Thank you.
I would remind everyone to please speak into the microphone so we can all hear you clearly. And then Mr. Gottberg, if you would direct your question to Mr. Gretkin.
Every year seems to be a tight budget year. Are there any ideas you have as far as cost sharing between the city and not just the county, but also the school district? Are there things the 3 entities should be doing together to save taxpayers money, since we pay property taxes to all 3?
I don't have any specific ideas, Woody, but I do know that ongoing right now, that the finance director, Donna Forker, meets on a regular basis with the county to discuss cost-sharing efforts, and I think there are things that can be done. We do it very effectively with the Woodbury County Information and Communication Center, handling both the communications aspects of the city and county as well as the IT and informational technology efforts. And they do a great job supporting both the county and the city. We haven't found much more. I think we are doing some things in terms of large purchases, computers for both places. So there are some items that we both use in the course of our daily activities, our responsibilities, and those things we do share. Beyond that, I really don't know how well it would work to expand beyond what currently is being done. But it is something that they're working on a regular basis.
Okay, thanks.
And would you direct your question to Mr. Jungers, please?
What would you do to try and bring more, say, I don't know, white-collar jobs to town, sort of middle-class jobs? There's so many jobs come to town. They're in factories. The latest jobs have been sort of in packing houses. But we always talk about how we want to bring more young professionals here. What can we do?
Sure. One of the things we need to do is we need to compete with Sioux Falls and we need to compete with Omaha. I mean, you look at Sioux Falls, they have healthcare as an industry. They have different banking and different industries there. We need to bring those jobs here. We need to compete with Omaha. Their entertainment district. Well, look at Hard Rock. We have part of a downtown that's growing. The other part we're taking away from. So, I mean, if you want to invest in everything, we got to bring jobs from them. We got to compete with them head on.
Okay, and this will be our last round of questions for this part of
I
the
asked him a question. I already asked him a question. This is on the Mayor's Youth Commission. Will you continue to support the Mayor's Youth Commission? What can you do to get more young people involved with city government?
Yeah, I think that's an incredible opportunity. It's one thing that I didn't know a lot about prior to serving on council, and seeing the incredible work, not just because they're here tonight, but telling them that the great stuff that they've been doing, especially fundraising efforts and funding different initiatives. I think recently they did a the Frisbee Golf Park and different things up at Grandview and a couple other things that they made big donations to. I think that not only it gets them involved in that level, but also learning more about what's happening in our city. And it's that integration, it's that working together where they're going to see and be a part of that growth. And I think ultimately want to stay here. That's why I really believe in internships and expanding those opportunities for college students, getting them more involved in the community too. Because I think at the point that they buy in and they see what's going on and feel a part of the process, they want to live and grow here too. And so I really would look for any opportunity to get them more involved.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And to Mr. Olson over here. Then.
In your opening statement, you mentioned that you thought the city needed more family things and you'd wanted to see some change. What type of family-oriented amenities don't we have now that you'd like to see us have?
Well, I think Mr. Grecken kind of touched on it a little bit with the trails. I think we need an expansion of trails here for both walking and bike riding and everything. I think the riverfront area should have, the bike rentals. Like Omaha and Sioux Falls have. You just stick your credit card in there or whatever, and then you be able to do that. It's simple, easy, and be something real fun for families to do. I think we need to expand on parks. Like actually play equipment on parks and everything else in most parks. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm dying here. So, yeah, that's about right.
Okay. Thank you. And your question to Mr. Quinn, please.
In light of recent events in Las Vegas and tragedies like that with guns and shooters, do you think that we're doing enough with public safety when we have big concerts sort of downtown in Battery Park and outside? Or do you think there's something else the city could do to provide more security?
Wow. With this deal here in Las Vegas, I don't really know how you would, if it happened here, what kind of security you could do to stop something like that. I mean, that was just out of nowhere, I think there's, plenty of security. The security is good for where it's at, but if you got people that are outside the venue, like this guy was in a hotel somewhere or something, I don't know what you could do with it or how you would enforce it. I think the day we're living in now, it's crazy.
And Mrs. O'Kane to Mr. Waples.
I guess I'm going to go back to revitalizing downtown. What ideas do you have? There are a lot of small businesses, and I don't know who mentioned you need to support small business, but what would you do to enhance utilizing downtown and shopping downtown? And parking is an issue. Do you have any ideas on how to fight that issue?
Well, I guess the only way you're going to enhance it, you're going to have to do something to entice a business to come in. And you're either going to have to do it through giving them, a break on taxes for the first year or two, or help them with refacing the front of the building if they're working with an old one. But it seems like the downtown deal's been going on. We've been trying to save it for a lot of years. I mean, I grew up in a small town. We used to come to Sioux City every Monday night. Are open. And now, I think the mayor made the comment one time, some of the eating establishments downtown aren't even open on Monday night. So, you've got to change the way some people are doing business to help it.
Thank you. Mr. Gotberg to Mr. Washorn, please.
Watch what some of the city departments have done over time. In doing that, is there anything you'd like to see cut in the city if you're elected to the council, where there's a department or an entity that you said that you'd say that's top heavy, or we can save money by cutting this thing or that thing? Anything like that you'd bring to the table if elected?
My opinion on that is a little bit, what's the word? I don't know the word for it, but the one that I dislike the most and is my pet peeve in the city is the city manager's department. And I don't believe that it's entirely necessary, but as I said, I'd like to do a little more research to see if I could trim the fat there. That would be my spot, definitely.
And Ms. Hartnett to Mr. Davidson.
What would you think about making the city council meetings a little later? So do you think that would encourage more people to come, and would you change it if you could?
Absolutely. I think having it start a little later would encourage more people to come. I know right now they start awful early, 4:30. There's a lot of people that are still working that they don't get off till 5. They got to get home, get dinner for the kids. I mean, if we start a meeting at 6, I think it would be perfect for people to be able to come to them.
Ms. O'Kane to Mr. Gretkin.
What areas do you think the city steps can they take to reduce the city's carbon footprint? I mean, are we doing all we can to reduce pollution, save energy, those kinds of things?
Well, I think we're working on a very big one that Councilmember Waters made reference to, and that's the bioenergy down at the wastewater treatment plant. I think that will provide opportunity to generate natural gas that could be used effectively and generate revenue at the same time. I think that's really important. I think that the city is doing a number of things, and they continue to work their way through their buildings with lighting changes, going to LED lighting, saving utilities a great deal of money. In fact, I went out to buy 4 LED lights today, and they promised me instead of 9 months, they would last 13 years. So I know we're doing that through the city facilities at the same time. I think another really good one would be recycling, to encourage more recycling. I think that's a very important issue. We've gotten better, and I think this council has, thank you, has done a great job with that. You can tell Pete has a hard time with 60 seconds.
Thank you.
And your question to Mr. Jungers, please, Mr. Gottberg.
We've heard about a proposed Ag Expo in various forms for years. It originally started as something that might be built at the Woodbury County Fairgrounds in Mobile. Now it's part of a developmental district near the downtown area. Are you in favor of the Ag Expo project, or would you like to see a different type of venue?
Sure. No, I'm absolutely in favor of the Ag Expo Center. And I think people talked about making it more recreational for families too, whether if you have basketball or volleyball courts or something like that. But my only question on it is if, I know there'd be like a Baumgart store inside of it. If they're paying for that or how that is worked, I don't know how that's works. But using the TIF money that they're using to do the hotel downtown and everything like that, I think it's a great deal for Sioux City, and that's how we got to grow. And we have to rebuild the stockyards. So.
And the last question to Mr. Moore.
What project could you point to, since you've been on the council, are you most proud of, or what accomplishment?
Well, there's so many. There really are. We just have been, I mean, it's just a great time to be a resident, really, in Sioux City. You know, I think I'm going to point to Cone Park right now, because that's going to be something that we can all enjoy. Council's been very mindful of pricing, of boy, we got these other fabulous projects that have happened in the past 4 years too. I mean, we're continually updating our facilities, which have needed it over years. One thing I kept saying, I was a broken record on Cone Park. I said, let's have the fund for maintaining. And I had arguments that, well, that's going to be a maintenance-free Cone Park. And I said, there isn't anything that I know of that's maintenance-free at my home anyway. And if you discover what it is, please tell me. But I think it's important that I think that's going to be really a really boost to Sioux City.
And now, gentlemen, I will give you the opportunity to address one of the issues that maybe someone else was asked about, but you were not, and would like to have 60 seconds to say something about it. Mr. Olson, we will be starting with you.
Thank you. Well, I guess I'll just kind of pick and choose here. Jake, Mr. Youngers, you were just asked about the Ag Expo Center. I agree. I think we do need the Ag Expo Center. I'm not 100% sure if it needs to be in the stockyards area to rebuild the stockyards, because that's where the stockyards should be, but that's my own opinion. I know it's gone. It was part of Sioux City history, and that's what it is, but this is supposed to be a city of industry, and we're not. Our biggest venue, I mean, our biggest revenue stream right now is a casino. And it shouldn't be that way. A casino's cool. I'm not saying that the Hard Rock or guitar at the top of that building is not flashy and awesome, but with the exception of Seaboard Triumph coming in now, we haven't had anything streaming revenue in here and for at least a little while, and that's I think exactly what we need.
Okay, Mr. Quinn.
I don't have anything.
Nothing? Okay. Mr. Waples.
I guess I don't have any.
Okay. Mr. Watchorn?
Well, I have a couple, if that's all right.
Go for it.
I believe Mr. Quinn addressed the question about the hotel projects downtown, the current one. Maybe not, maybe not. That's all right.
I do.
I was close. Yeah. To my left. But my opinion on that is I would have agreed with Mayor Scott. The project seems to me to be unnecessary. We already have one hotel that's fallen apart downtown. Do we really need another one that's going to be the same in 20 years? Beyond that, the traffic camera issue, in my opinion, they need to be eliminated completely. The ones on corners, red light cameras, that's fine. That makes sense. The problem I have is how people are forced to pay for them. You can't take cash or anything to the police department. You have to mail it through a third party, which I find just ridiculous. If you can't pay for a fine in the city, you shouldn't be able to get that fine. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. And back to you, Mr. Davidson.
I'd like to just touch a bit on the last question that Mr. Gretkin was asked. Thinking about it, with the going green, one thing the city could do to improve, turn all our old cars in and start getting hybrids, or going to electric vehicles. Also in the city would probably be a big help.
And Mr. Gretkin.
I don't know where to begin. But I'm going to start with, and I'm not sure, it might have been Mr. Moore and it might not have been Mr. Moore, but the question that stuck out to me, what do you think is important, really important on with the development of the comprehensive plan? And I think the response was to let the people be heard. And I really couldn't agree more. In almost 4 years, not quite, in this term, that I involve myself that faces the council and city government in general to engage, to get the public to engage council. It is so terribly hard. One of the things council did was, very early in my term, was to start a monthly event. That's impossible. iPhone. Okay. But we really need people to engage city government.
Okay.
And I'll pick out another one if.
No, we can let Mr. Jungers have a turn.
How hard that 3-minute rule is at council?
I'll never tell anybody to sit down after 3 minutes. Never.
Go ahead, Mr. Jungers.
I would say kind of what Pete was saying, Mr. Gretkin. I think Doug.
Pete's good.
Pete's good? Yeah, of course you are. I would say Mr. Wapples had the question of how to approach city council. And I would say based on meetings and stuff like that, I think meetings are at 4 o'clock and there's a meeting before that. But if people can't get off work, then we need to validate opinions that aren't just necessarily here. We need to validate opinions online. We need to integrate social media. And I'm saying if you're not a fan of it, that's the way the world's going. So, I mean, obviously you can censor questions. You don't want bad questions coming in like that. But I think that's what you'd have to start. You'd have to validate every opinion.
And Mr. Moore.
I would like to just say this about all of the projects that have been discussed this evening. I think the input is really good. And there isn't anything specific I want to say about the projects at this time. But what I do want to say is this community, Sioux City, should really be proud because we have all of these projects that we may agree or disagree on. And whenever you deliberate, whenever you have conversation about what's going on, that's what I invite. I like that kind of discussion. It's non-confrontive, it's non-threatening. We can do it in a very civil manner. We can do it professionally. We can do it ethically. And that's what I'm so proud of the residents of Sioux City because we can say our piece, we can say it civilly. We do that week after week on the council. We have 3-2 votes, 4-1 votes. Once in a great while, we'll have 5-0 votes. But you want that as citizens. You want a council that's going to openly disagree with each other, no hidden agendas. You want transparency, and I think that's what we deliver.
And Mr. Waters.
Well, I feel like like Pete, I could talk about a lot of things. The first thing that I would want to do is just education about different things and researching, because we talk about council times is something that's come up a couple of times. We tried that a few years ago, and actually attendance was lower, and it cost the taxpayers more to have people here after hours. And so I think that's something that needs to be a part of the discussion rather than just saying more people will come. The other thing I think we need to do is obviously improve our marketing. I think it was Mr. Olson. that was talking about a lack of amenities or things that were happening in our community. And I think it's the complete opposite. We have so much going on to our community, but people don't know about it. Ask my girlfriend. I'm pretty sure I drag her around the city every night, going to different events or things on the weekend, multiple events happening. And we need to make sure that people know about it. And it's also about education about some of the issues. I think it was brought up earlier about obviously the hotel project, the ag center, things like that. We need to make sure that people understand what the ins and outs of that project are and how the reinvestment district is really going to help grow our community, and how getting $13.5 million from the state that we otherwise wouldn't have is a good thing. Is a good thing. So sorry, a few more things, but.
All right, thank you. This concludes the first portion of our forum tonight. Please join me in thanking our panelists, Mrs. O'Kay, Mr. Gottberg, and Mrs. Hartnett, for donating their time and asking their questions. We will take a short break. Audience, you are asked to write any questions you may have for our candidates on the cards that have been provided. The League of Women Voter members will collect those. And after our break, I will pose as many of those as we have time for. So, thank you.
How long's our break?
5 to 10 minutes.
Oh,
Quickly.
I know where we're going.
Yeah, I've got it here. Should I gavel everyone into
I came that
silence?
night. There might have been
I
five people.
could do that.
It works for him.
What do you think, Alan?
I was one of the five.
Got the gavel?
As the mayor, now I'm nervous.
You should be. Okay, I will ask these questions as quickly as possible. You will have 60 seconds to answer them. And we're going to be starting with Mr. Quinn, since
that
that's
down.
where we left off.
Send that
Oh,
one
we had
down.
another
You
question?
got another one.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Mr. Quinn, is there room for growth in the city doing business with certified minority businesses? What about minority restaurants, food establishments specifically? Can the city do more business with certified minority-owned businesses?
I think sure they can. I think there's the diversity that we have in the city. I think there'd be a good call for it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Waples, this question was directed directly at you. How would you propose to fund the other facilities that were included with the downtown hotel project without the reinvestment funds from the state hotel tax?
I didn't say they couldn't put the hotel downtown. I just don't like where it was being put. I think there's a better spot to put it than in the parking lot that's used by vendors that use the convention center. And when you have to load and unload out of that place after, say, a car show or the home show or any other type of item, which I've done numerous times, and, which is usually in the middle of winter, it's not a lot of fun.
Thank you. Mr. Watchorn, can you expand on which redundant city employees' positions you would propose eliminating?
As I said, my personal pet peeve is the city manager's office. I would have to do a little more research to see if I could come up with any others right off the top of my head. But yeah, I'd like to look into some of those places, some of the places that are paid more than others, that get the higher echelons, as I said, of the city budget. I would like to see where we could trim that to bring the budget down rather than trying to deal with all this overhead.
Thank you. Mr. Davidson, there is a very large teenage population in Sioux City, but not very many activities for them to do. What would you suggest be implemented in the city for teenagers?
Jeez. For teenagers, I don't know. I had a teenager. He's now 20, so not anymore. But I always thought there was plenty for them to do. You just got to go out and find it. Roll-A-Rama's still around. But yes, I think we need to find more things for them. Not really sure what. We maybe need to sit down, talk to them, ask them what they would like, get their opinions and all of that. Because if they want something that, I'm clearly not a teenager anymore, but if I'm thinking something and they don't like that idea, what's the point of, me saying, hey, let's do this for them, but it's not a good idea for them.
Thank you. Mr. Gretkin, with so many apartments and condos being built downtown, those people will need a place to shop for groceries and necessities. How do you think this can be accomplished?
Well, I think it would be best accomplished by working with a grocery retailer to put a store in the downtown area. Now, how we go about that is another issue. I know that the Economic Development Department is having ongoing discussions with at least one grocery store, but I don't think they're leaning towards the downtown area. But downtown definitely needs a grocery store, and I think what they do with most of their economic development projects is to work very diligently and make repeated calls to companies that they think will help improve the city. And certainly a grocery store in the downtown area would be ideal. So I think we just need to be persistent. I think we need to keep knocking on doors until we find that right person. Thank you.
Mr. Jungers, you have been actively critical of the current city council and Mayor Scott. If elected, how would you work together with the incumbent council and the mayor?
I think difference between criticism and respect. I respect the gentleman to the side of me and Alex over here, and I respect Rhonda, and I respect Bob Scott.
Okay, I'm not sure I can read this one. I'll try. A large majority of you discussed money and budgets and the quality of streets. Please give specifics on the amount of money needed for our streets and when that money will come from and where that money will come from in the budget.
That's a good question. I don't have the numbers at my fingertips. I apologize. We have, if you look at our budget book, you'll see the capital improvements projects are numerous, but I do know this. I do know that City Council has built into the budget street improvements, and it's a top priority. We're trying to bring down the average, and again, I'm going from memory, and at age 64, you know, sometimes it gets to be tested, but the average age of our streets, I think we've brought it down from like 90 years to around 70 years. And so the infrastructure is a very important project to accomplish. It's a big project to tackle, but we're up for it, and we have built that into our budget. I just apologize for not having the specific numbers at hand tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Waters, workforce development is a large issue in Sioux City. Can you give specific details on how to achieve this rather than a vague plan?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to sound like a broken record, but I think I've talked about some of those specific things, right? And being able to recruit these different types of jobs, we need to work with the area community colleges as well as educational institutions like Briarcliff and Morningside to see what the need is in our community and what we can do. I'm working with, as I said, HR, talking about expanding internships, not only within city itself, but also working with different industries. I'm having a meeting with Unity Point to see what can be done to get students into their organizations sooner so they start seeing what that hospital life is like and make sure that they want to be a nurse and hopefully stay right here in Sioux City. But it also takes working with Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development to see what growth wants to be done here. What type of jobs are we going to need to do? What can we do to recruit them here and really have that workforce to fill them? So, I mean, those are some of the specific projects that I'm working on, but I think we can do more, and it takes that dialogue and communication.
Thank you. Mr. Olson, you have said, many of the candidates have said that you want to speak for the people who don't have a voice. But how are you going to reach people who are outside your own circle to hear what that voice is? How do you choose which voice you speak for, as there are so many different points of view here in the city?
How do I, my circle, I don't have a circle. Everybody is, there is no real inner circle with me. I'll be out there and I'm in the community every single day. I see hundreds of people all the time. You know, I just, how am I going to be the voice? Man, I think here's the deal. There is a big difference between listening and hearing. Now, I feel that our council listens, but I don't think they really hear. And it needs to be, it needs to hear, because what this city wants is for the people of my age it wants to change. And it's just, it hasn't changed. I don't know. Like I said, I've been here for 39 years and I haven't seen it change yet. So will it? Maybe. I don't know. But that's what I hear.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Quinn, what amount of money do you consider a living wage? And I guess the next question would be, how do we ensure that we have jobs that pay that?
What do I think a living wage is? Well, I'm sure you're probably talking somewhere 20 some dollars an hour, I suppose. It would be, in today's market, would be something that you would need at least to keep up with, with everything that's going on. They talk about a $15 an hour minimum wage, but I don't even know if that's good enough anymore. I think most people would have to start at least in the 20s.
And how can we get those jobs here?
You'd have to work with the economic development people, see what's available to bring here to town.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Mr. Waples, do you feel Sioux City is a welcoming community for immigrants? What can you do to help them feel safe and included?
I mean, yes, I feel it is a welcoming community. There seems to be a lot of groups helping all kinds of people with housing, and whenever you're in City Hall, the people on the first floor are going in and out of that housing office all day long. You know, help, man, I think it's easy to get help. All they have to do is walk in the door.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Watchorn, explain your views on the ambulance city situation. Are you running because, I don't know if this is supposed to be directed to a specific person or not. Are you running because of concern for the city, or, I can't read that, so.
Well, yes, I guess. Concern for the city is always paramount
Right.
to any, that's why I want to be involved. When it comes to the ambulance issue, from what I read at least, I felt like the company, the Siouxland Paramedics that had been running it, they had changed from a nonprofit to some kind of profit-based system, and that's where it all fell apart for me. The moment they tried to make profit off someone being injured, that's sad, is it not? Moving to being managed by the city, I think, is a much better idea and is a stable structure that has been built in many other cities. Having those first responders together seems just like a good idea to me, even from a budgetary standpoint.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Davidson, what will you do to help protect all of the people living in this city? And in particular, they're asking about children who are covered by DACA, who are living here, who are going to school here, and have already committed to our community. So how can we keep those people safe?
Jeez, that's a really good one. I truly wish that I had a profound answer to say, hey, this is the idea that I think that we have that can keep them here, keep them safe. I just think that we need to work with the government better, hand in hand, because they're citizens, they're residents of Sioux City. Everyone here we need to keep them here. You know, it doesn't matter who you are, you're a resident of this city. First and foremost, we need to make sure they are safe, that they have a house, roof over their head, food on their table, you know, education, all of that stuff. Like I said, you know, keeping anybody, you know, here is first and foremost.
All right, thank you. Mr. Gretkin, I've lived here 51 years and am beginning to question how long I can continue to maintain my home. Taxes continuing to increase, yet tax abatements are given to people building expensive houses, not for senior citizens who continue to see our property taxes increase. So I'm guessing the question here has to do with how can you help senior citizens, or should those tax abatements maybe be distributed differently? I'm not sure if there's a question. It seems to be a
Well,
statement.
let's start with how we can help senior citizens. I think one of the good projects the city has been involved in, and all credit goes to Dan Moore. He came up with the idea of having a senior advisory board, and they have met, they have put together a charter and their goals and what they hope to accomplish. I think the first step is listening to your seniors and what they tell you their need or needs may be. I think that's really important. So I expect a lot of good things, really good things to come from that committee. And I don't want them to feel bad because a lot of people don't
You don't want them to feel bad, just period. There we go.
Mr. Jungers, how would you propose to regulate input from social media? Citizens are required to affirm their residency at meetings, and that would be difficult to verify online.
I don't think so at all. On Facebook, you have to put in your address and where you live, so it kind of self-regulates. But obviously, what's that?
You don't have to put in your address to sign up for a Facebook account.
Okay. But I would say, I mean, people are going to know if you're real or not, obviously, by the name. If you continually ask the same questions, then, I mean, eventually you're going to get an answer. So, I mean, if you look at Twitter, you look at Facebook, whatever you want to do, there's a way to limit the questions. There's a way to what response you put in, but that's what I would do.
Mr. Moore, how long would you keep tax abatement? I feel the city is overtaxing. This is again back to the idea of taxing young families and senior citizens. And back to that question about the tax abatements.
Sure. I think tax abatement, I think TIF, I think we have a lot of economic tools in our toolkit to help start up businesses, start up housing, and I think it's important. I think what you have to do, at least what I want to do and try to do, is to actually look at the numbers and see what the payback period is. So I don't know if an abatement period of 5 years would be too long. It might be on certain projects. 10 years might be not long enough, but there has to be a cutoff, and the numbers have to you have to look at the numbers to see if it works out to make that project successful. And then after that point in time, tying in with minimum assessments and the taxes that would continue after that time, of course, would contribute to the revenues of the city. So I think you just have to look at, it's a case-by-case basis. You have to look at each project as it stands on its own.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Waters, talk about your beliefs regarding the LGBTQ protections and whether special class status is warranted.
Well, I think we need to do everything we can to protect all members of the citizens here in Sioux City. I think especially those marginalized or feel like they're disadvantaged, I think that we need to do everything that we can to protect all people. I know that me, myself, speaking as a person with a disability, I think sometimes we don't think of those different populations and how decisions we make affect them, and it's often negatively. And I think that we need to continually bring groups to the table to hear what their ideas are, what their input, and how we can improve our city to continue to be inclusive rather than exclusive. I think that oftentimes people just feel marginalized and like their voice is not being heard. We've heard a little bit about that tonight. I think that we need to continue bringing people to the table so we can protect these different populations.
Thank you. Mr. Olson, are you willing to sign on to the Paris Accords at the city level as hundreds of towns and cities throughout the United States have already done?
Yes, of course I would be willing to. You put an X by it and I'm gonna sign it. That's the way I am. The Paris at the city level, man, that question is completely, I'm sorry, that one got by me. It's a good idea, I guess, why not? Hey, let's do it. Let's try it out. We trying out everything else. We can try out the Paris Accords. We got it done.
Thank you. Near downtown residential density. How can we ensure the upper levels of all buildings are used?
The buildings in downtown.
Yes, that's
Could you read?
and near downtown residential density. So they want to increase the density by using all the upper floors of.
Well, I think you would have to build up to downtown to develop it so that people would want to move down here, like where they talked about earlier about building a grocery store or something down there, you'd have to have a reason for people to be coming down here to live.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Waples, it seems to be often that a vote taken is less than a vote of 5 members because of conflict of interest. Is this in the public's best interest?
It probably isn't, but when you have 5 councilmen, unless you're completely retired, somebody can always have a conflict through either their business or if it's somebody they know or whatever. I don't know that it's a good deal, but I don't know that you're ever going to get completely away from it.
Thank you. Okay, I'm trying to get to some questions that may be a little bit different from what we've had already. Mr. Watchorn, could we have been more active in encouraging CF construction team members to stay?
I don't believe so, honestly. They were here to build the plant. Once the plant is built, half those jobs are going to go away. That's just the way it is. If we had another industry to actually build again, then yeah, we could have, but we didn't have anything coming in right away to take up that place. You can't keep somebody if there's no job. That's just the way it is.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Davidson, could you please tell us more about the hybrid car trade-in program?
Okay, so, just like cash for clunkers back then, I see city vehicles running around all the time. They're older model vehicles. Why not, start when they start getting at the end of their life? Let's move into, a program, and I'm sure there are government programs that help cities, move into hybrid, green, electric vehicles. I think that, that is just a great idea,
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Gretkin, why does the council have to be a paid position, and why did you vote in favor for a raise when it affects the taxpayer? Taxes in this town are very high.
They are, but let me point out real quickly, I believe in the 4 budgets I've been involved in, the last 3 the tax levy was cut. So I just think that's an important point. I think the council is very aware of citizens' concerns about the property tax levy and do everything they can to keep that in check. But it's a difficult challenge. Repeat the question again for me, please. Quickly, though, because she's only going to give me 30 seconds.
Why did you vote in favor of a raise when it affects the taxpayer?
I voted in favor of the raise because I wanted it to be unanimous among the council. I think what a lot of people don't know is the number of hours that council members give and work every week. I would venture a guess that at a minimum, everybody does 25 to 30 hours, sometimes more. And I don't think anybody here, I certainly didn't go looking for this job to make money. In fact, it currently is $8,500 a year. But you do it for the love of, again, I think it's important to recognize council members are extremely busy, very active, much more, I would say, than the county and the school board. But I could start an argument. I could start an argument there, probably.
Okay. Mr. Jungers.
You're going to have to give me a 2 minutes.
That's Pete Grecken at City.
I know Alex and his friends and that, I mean, work extremely hard on Sioux City Growth Organization. I'd like to work with them to install new ideas. I'd like to work with current council members that have their ideas. But the only way I can do anything is if I get on city council. That's how I feel. once we get on there, we'll continue and we'll start.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Moore, when a packing plant creates an odor problem, it is their responsibility to correct